Hello, welcome. I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us today for this special event commemorating the World Day of Peace. My name is Sarah Keeler and I'm the Advocacy Manager with Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan. And we're really pleased and proud to be co-sponsoring and co-organizing this timely and important discussion today with women living under Muslim laws and co-hosted by the Elahé Omidyar Mir-Djalali Institute of Iranian Studies at the University of Toronto, and with the participation of a broad coalition of women's networks, human rights defenders, civil society organizations, and legal scholars. The theme of today's event is Build Peace, End Gender Apartheid, because we all know that peace can be achieved only with the full and equal participation of women in society, women from all walks of life. But we also probably, those of us gathered here, know that today in Iran and Afghanistan, women's most fundamental rights are being brutally repressed. And we're equal to that, seeing global pushback on women's rights. So this discussion could not be more urgent or necessary. So I want to thank you all for being here and for being a part of this work. I want to just briefly pass the floor to my friend and colleague Homa Hoodfar to share a little bit about our joint campaign for the recognition of gender apartheid. So I'll pass over to Homa and then we'll begin the formal portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just going to talk a little bit first in English and then we'll switch a little bit in Farsi too. Since, of course, we all know about the situation in Afghanistan and in Iran, since last fall, actually, we have been talking about importance of the gender apartheid campaign and what we should do. But so finally, this discussion ended in we were working on this topic as we decided that on the 8th of March we are going to launch a campaign as women living under Muslim law to look at gender apartheid, especially because we were actually in the 1980s. I was just talking earlier to colleagues that we started the campaign for gender apartheid in 1982, 2 years after the Iranian Revolution. But of course, no one was ready or willing to hear, including the civil society. So we launched a campaign on 8th of March this year, after much discussion on whether we should do it or not. The interesting thing was, once we launched, we realized several other organizations have also launched the campaign for recognition of gender apartheid as a campaign, which means the civil society, the international community, is actually really ready for the first time to recognize gender apartheid as a crime. So we were very excited. We then joined with Canadian Women for Afghan Women and also with the regional network, Women Regional Network, as well as the committee of advocacy committee in Khasan. The four of us, we launched the petition and we started and talking to other campaigner. We realized some of the other organizations have a lot more resources and can talk to the UN and officials and government, but very few people are paying attention to how to mobilize the civil society elsewhere, civil society in Asia, civil society in Afghanistan. So we took that aspect of the campaign and we're doing that. So today really is launching that the campaign, the letter that we wrote. More than 100 organizations have signed, 100 women organizations have signed, and also another 80 influential women, including Mrs. Shirin Ebadi, has signed a letter, which we will launch today and share it with the media, with the Canadian government as well. And so we are actually hoping that this keep the issue. Now that there's an interest in the topic, the international civil society, we all have to push, is an opportunity we should not miss. Now that we don't have the support of the states behind us, but we have the support of civil society and generally the public. So we kept that momentum. The talk today is based on really getting the momentum continue. And of course, we have the honor to have Dr. Ebadi to talk to us. I will give the floor back to Sarah to tell us a little bit more. And then since the majority of us here are Farsi speaking, and Mrs. Ebadi can only stay with us a short period, but she's willing to take some question and answer, but also give us a talk. What I suggested that she will give the talk in Farsi, and then I will provide a summary afterwards rather than interrupting her. But we will put her speech then online with subtitle so that everyone can benefit from it. I'm sorry for not being able to do it right away together for those who are English speaking, but I'm very happy to afterwards to also answer questions and provide more of a summary. Thank you. Sarah,
thank you, Homa. So yes, as Homa mentioned, we have several very distinguished speakers joining us in person or virtually today. And it is my greatest honor, and we're so grateful for the support for this initiative of our first guest, who will say a few words. Ms. Shirin Ebadi is a renowned human rights activist, was one of the first female judges in Iran, and is a Nobel laureate. In 2003, Shirin Ebadi was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless lifelong efforts to promote human rights, particularly those of women, children, and political prisoners in Iran. She was the first Iranian and the first Muslim woman to receive this prestigious honor. Her Nobel Prize recognizes her courageous advocacy, and we are honored to have her powerful presence with us today. Ms. Ebadi, I know you have other engagements this afternoon, and so without further ado, I would like to invite you to now address our gathering. Thank you so much.
دوستان، خواهران، همرزمان، سلام بر شما. خیلی خوشحالم از اینکه امروز اینجا با شما هستم و از دوستان عزیزی که ترتیب این برنامه را دادن، خصوصا خانم دکتر هودفر سپاسگزارم. زنان ایران و افغانستان هر دوتا زبان مشترک داریم، تاریخ مشترک داریم و درد مشترک داریم، راه حل مشترک هم داریم. ما هر دو گزیده شده از جنگ سرد هستیم. جنگ سرد باعث شد که به خاطر ترس از کمونیسم آمریکا و غرب حکومت استبداد دینی خمینی رو بر ما تحمیل کردن و از اون طرف هم شوروی به افغانستان حمله کرد برای اینکه توازن قوا حفظ بشود و بعد برای اینکه باز توازن قوای دنیا حفظ بشود با پول آمریکا و عربستان طالبان ساخته شد. طالبان ساخته شد، اون داستان پیش آمد. بعد دیدن که دیگه زیاد صرف نمیکنه در اونجا موندن، آمدن یه دفعه بیرون آمدن و 2 مرتبه کشوری که داشت آباد میشد یاد میگرفت یه چیزایی رو، مردم از جا بلند شده بودن، آگاه شده بودن، 2 مرتبه باز همون سرنوشت دردناک. و از این طرف هم مردم در ایران چندین جنبش بزرگ رو شروع کردن. هر بار حکومت دیکتاتوری ایران با کمک آمریکا و اروپا 2 مرتبه بهش کمک کردن. آخرین چیزی که کمک کردن مسئله 6 میلیارد دلاری بود که آمریکا به ایران داد در قبال گروگانگیری. یکی از چیزایی که حکومت ما خیلی خوب بلده این است که هر وقت یک برنامه‌ای داره میخواد اجرا کنه یا پولی میخواد یا هر چی، یه آدم بیگناه رو گروگان میگیره و دنیا بالاخره مجبورن که باهش مجبور نیستن، خودشونو فکر میکنن مجبورن، باهش راه میان و این داستان همچنان ادامه داره. با پرداخت پول این 6 میلیارد دلار مردم ایران به شدت مخالف بودن. نکنید این کار رو. راه های دیگری هست که گروگان ها رو آزاد بکنید. اونا بیگناهند، باید هم آزاد بشن، اما راهش نیست که به ایران پول بدید. منتها گوش نکردن، برای اینکه مقاصد دیگری داشتن که البته میدونیم پشتبند همه اینها سود کشورهای غربی و زیان کشورهای ماست. و همین دلیل هم ایران عقب ماند و هم افغانستان. پس میبینید که درد ما مشترکه و ما چون درد مشترک داریم، راه حل ما را مشترک. راه حل ما شروع میشه از اتحاد زنان ایران و افغانستان. این اتحاد به صورت کوچک گله به گله شکل گرفته. تعدادی از فعالین در سمت ایران و افغانستان دارن با هم کار میکنن. حالا این رودهای کوچک رو بایستی سعی کنیم به هم بپیوندیم که تبدیل به یک رودخانه خروشان بشود. رودخانه که راه خودش رو باز میکنه، رودخانه که میتواند ارتجاع رو عقب بزنه. چگونه میشود این رودهای کوچک رو به هم وصل کرد که تبدیل به یک رود خروشان بشه، راهش رو بهتر باز کنه؟ راههای متعددی هست. به نظر من دانشگاه ها یکی از این راه ها هستن. توی دانشگاه ها بایستی برنامه های مربوط به اتحاد اکتیویست های ایرانی و افغان هر دوتا شروع کنن. این برنامه ها باید شروع بشه. درد ما علاوه بر اینکه ما مورد سوء استفاده کشورهای غربی قرار گرفتیم، زیربنای ستم به زن در هر دو کشور یک چیزه، مذهب نیست. مذهب اسلام بر زن ستم نمیکنه. این فرهنگ پدرسالاره که از هر توجیه، از هر وسیله‌ای برای توجیه خودش استفاده میکنه. یکی از این مسائل مذهب، سوء استفاده از مذهب برای تمام ادیان هست. خیال نکنیم که فقط مسلمان ها هستن که از مذهب علیه زن سوء استفاده میکنن. توی مسیحیت الان تو آمریکا ببینیم بحث روز چیه؟ سخت جنین. اونایی که با سخت جنین مخالفن چرا مخالفن؟ میگن گناه داره، خدا خوشش نمیاد. دین یهود یه جور دیگه. در تمام ادیان ابراهیمی یه چیز هست که هممون قبول داریم، خدا جنسیت نداره. میگن خدا ورای تصوراته، ورای. اما حالا ببینم چرا قرآن هر وقت میخواد از خدا نام ببره با ضمیر مذکر نام میبره؟ هو این که ضمیر مذکره. مگه قرار نیست که خدا جنسیت نداشته باشه؟ واسه چی جنسیت بهش میدین؟ اینا کی نوشته؟ کی تفسیر کرده؟ در مسیحیت فرقی نمیکنه. پدر و پسر روح القدس. پدر کیه؟ و چرا مادر نه؟ مادری که زایشه. مسیح حداقل مادر که داشت، حالا پدرش میگن حالا هر چی، اما مادر که داشت. چطور پدر و پسر روح القدس؟ مگه خدا جنسیت قرار بود جنسیت نداشته باشه؟ یهودی هم همینطور. در تمام انجیل و قرآن و عهد عتیق اینا تمام یک گناهکار اصلی هست که به خاطر اون همه بایستی تمام بشریت چوب خوردن، از بهشت رانده شدن. اونم یه زن حوا. حالا حوا چه گناهی کرده که همه ما باید چوب بخوریم؟ مشخص نیست. بالاخره یکی باید گناه بکنه که اونی هم که بده زره. ببینید اینا یه نمونه های خیلی کوچیکی است که من در وقت بسیار کمی که دارم به شما برای دوستان عزیز مطرح میکنم که بگم فقط عیب از اسلام نیست، ریشه یه جای دیگری است. با اون فرهنگ پدرسالار برابری انسانها رو قبول نداره و چون برابری انسانها رو قبول نداره همیشه پشت یک سپری قایم میشه. چون برابری انسانها رو قبول نداره دموکراسی هم قبول نداره. دموکراسی یعنی چی؟ ما که به قول روی صندلی قدرت نشستیم، حالا ما هر کی هستیم، یا پاپ هستیم یا آخوند هستیم یا خاخام هستیم، هر کی، ما می توانیم دستور بدهیم دیگران هم دستور بدهند و باید اطاعت بکنن دیگران از ما. خب این میرسه به خانواده هم بر همین مبنا. بنابراین مسئله مهم آموزش. ما با آموزش میتوانیم با فرهنگ پدرسالار مبارزه کنیم. به همین دلیلی که میبینیم که کشورهای استبداد زده اسلامی چقدر با آموزش دختران مخالفن. در افغانستان دانشگاه‌های خوبی بود، دختران داشتن درس می‌خوندن، سطوح مختلف. یه دفعه اومدن گفتن نه، بالاتر از دبستان حق ندارید درس بخونید. ما همونطوری که گفتم تاریخ مشترک درد مشترک داریم، راه حل‌های مشترک هم میتونیم با هم دیگه پیدا کنیم. من یه تجربه از ایران میگم. یه تجربه ما داشتیم خیلی موفق بود. میدونید در ایران ما ادیان مختلفی توش زندگی میکنن. قبل از انقلاب 1979 ادیان همه برابر بودن تقریبا، همه درس میتونستن درس بخونن، دانشگاه برن، کار داشته باشن. بعد از انقلاب اسلامی گفتن که مذهب ما شیعه است، از همه را مهمتر و بهتریم، بقیه هم که چی، و آمدن لطف کردن و گفتن ادیان مسیحی و زرتشتی، مسیحی، یهودی و زرتشتی به رسمیت شناخته میشه. همین. خب در ایران یک دین ایرانی ما داشتیم، دین بهایی. 350,000 نفر بهایی در ایران زندگی میکنن و کل بهایی ها در جهان حدود 6 میلیون نفره. اینا گفتن حق ندارین برین مدرسه، حق ندارین برین دانشگاه دیگه. اونجا چون به هر حال جمعیت اینا زیاد بود و نمیتونستن از دبیرستان ها هم بیرونشون کنن، گفتن نمیتونین برین دانشگاه. طالب همونطوری که طالبان فراموش کرد پیغمبر اسلام گفت اطلب العلم ولو بالتین، همون پیروان اما به بسرش در افغانستان آمدن گفتن بیشتر از دبستان دختر نباید درس بخونه. و معلوم نیست که این حتما آقایون عقلشون بیشتر از پیغمبر اسلام میرسید که گفت اطلب العلم ولو بالتین. توی این همسایه شما ایران هم همینطور شد. گفتن یهودی ها رو اصلا به رسمیت نمیشناسیم، هیچ حقی هم ندارن، بی خودم دانشگاه نباید برن. به تدریج اینها رو در یه وضعیتی قرار میدادن که نیست و نابود بشن. اونا یه کار خوب کردن. من فکر کنم حالا وقت اینه که توی افغانستان شما رو از اونا یاد بگیرید. اونا آمدن مدارس زیرزمینی درست کردن، دانشگاه زیرزمینی. افرادی که حاضر بودن درس بخونن صداشو میکردن، توی چند خانه جمع میشدن، درسا و بهشون درس میدادن. و بعد از چند سال که اینا همون برنامه‌های رسمی رو تدریس میکردن، گفتم خب حالا شما لیسانس هستید. اما این کافی نبود، یه مرحله رفتن جلو. گفتم حالا که بچه ما لیسانس گرفتن میخوان بالاترم برن. رفتم با دانشگاه ها صحبت کردن، بهایی ها گفتن که وضعیت ایران اینطوره، نمیذارن ماها درس بخونیم. ما درس های در دانشگاه های زیرزمینی درست کردیم، اینا اونجا درس بخونن، فارغ التحصیل هم شدن. اجازه بدین لیسانسشون رو به رسمیت بشناسید. میان اینجا امتحان هم میدن، اما یه لیسانس امتحان دادن. و الان خوشحالم که بگم دانشگاه های بسیار زیادی در استرالیا این دانشگاه ها هست، در انگلیس هست، در آمریکا هست و این الان یه تعداد از اون افرادی که به این صورت درس خوندن الان خودشون استاد دانشگاه شدن. من با آقای توی آکسفورد صحبت میکردم، دانشگاه آکسفورد، گفتم فارغ التحصیل کجا هستین؟ گفت ما دانشگاه باهایی. گفتم زنده باد، این تا اینجا تونستن چرا برن؟ بنابراین شما فکر نکنید شکست خوردین، نبایستی خودتون رو شکست خورده تصور بکنید. شروع کنید به آموزش، یاد بدید، دبیرستان رو تموم بکنن و بعد با کشورهای دیگه صحبت بکنید. شما که میدونید شرایط ایران، شرایط افغانستان اینه، اینا رو قبول کنید به عنوان دانشجو، بورس بدید. به جای فاندهایی که از آمریکا و اروپا و کانادا به بعضی از مؤسسات میره و اینا معلوم نیست چه هزینه میشه و یا هزینه اگه میشه فایده نداره. مثلا ما هی باید زیربنایی کار کرد. این به جای اون فاندا بورس بگیریم واسه بچه ها. ضرورت هم نداره اوائل کار توی بوق و کرنا بکنید که بله ما اینقدر دبیرستان ساختیم، ما توانستیم تا اینجا پیش بریم. نه، برای اینکه فوراً جلوتون رو میگیرن. تا به هر شیوه ممکن نمیذاره این اتفاق بیفته و شما بایستی یه مقدار مخصوصاً در سالهای اولیه زیرزمینی کار کنید. احتیاج به چی دارید؟ گوشی هوشمند. البته BBC فارسی و برخی از این تلویزیون‌های اینترنتی برنامه آموزش برای دوستان افغان گذاشتن، اما میتونید خودتون اونا رو اداره کنید. یه تلویزیون اینترنتی داشت، فاند بگیرید برای تلویزیون اینترنتی و همچنین فاند بگیرید برای ارسال گوشی‌های هوشمند. البته که فرستادنش سخته، میدونم، الان نگین سخته، از این کارا ما زیاد کردیم. ما برای ایران استارلینک میفرستیم برای اینکه جلوی وقتی که اینترنت رو قطع میکنن کلا مملکت در خاموشی فرو نره. سخته ولی که شدنیه. پس میبینید که ما از همدیگه میتونیم یاد بگیریم. درد ما درد مشترک، راه حل ما هم میتونه مشترک باشه. یکی دیگه از راههایی که بایستی روش دقت بشه، اینا با چه حربه‌ای به حقوق زن حمله میکنن؟ با چه شمشیری با شما میجنگن؟ با شمشیر شریعت. خیلی خوب، حالا ما هم شما باید با شمشیر شریعت جوابشون بدید. یعنی چی؟ یعنی شریعت رو باید بلد باشید. باید بذارید به زبان ساده صحبت کنم، درز و دورز اسلام رو بشناسید، بدونید چه راه حل هایی هست. اسلام قوانینش دو نوعه. یه قوانینی داره که الالعبد همونه و شما نمیتونید عوضش بکنید و اون قوانینی است که ارتباط انسان رو با خالق تنظیم میکنه، مثل نماز خوندن، مثل روزه گرفتن. اینا رو نمیشه عوض کرد. میگن که اگر خودت رو مسلمان میدانی، نماز 14 رکعت اینجوری باید نماز بخونی. حالا نمیخوای بخونی ایراد نداره، اما اگه میخوای بخونی اینه. اما تمام قوانین اسلام که این نیست. دسته دوم و بیشترین قوانین اسلام در این دسته است. قوانینی که یعنی شریعت، قوانینی که رابطه فرد رو در اجتماع تنظیم میکنه، مثل ازدواج، مثل خرید و فروش، اجاره، داد و ستد، طلاق، همه اینا ارتباطی به خدا نداره. قوانینی است که روابط افراد رو با هم تنظیم میکنه. مجازات ها، جرائم، اینا تمام جزء این دسته از قوانین هستن. این دسته از قوانین تابع احکام ثانویه هستن. احکام ثانویه یعنی چی؟ احکام ثانویه یعنی این است که یک حکمی در ابتدای اسلام 14 قرن قبل، بیشتر از 14 قرن قبل آمده. خب اما این رو می توانید با حفظ روح اسلام قابل اجرا در زمان و مکان بکنید. و این حرف من نیست، این بدعت در دین نیست، از زمان حضرت رسول آمده. نمونش در یکی از غزوات، یعنی جنگ‌هایی که خود حضرت شرکت می‌کردن، کسی رو که شمشیری دزدیده بود از مثلا از دوستش، میبرن پیش حضرت، میگن این دزدی کرده. میگه خیلی خوب، شمشیر پس بگیرید. توبیخش کرد، سرزنش کردن، همینقدر که آبروش رفته بسه، ولش کنید. لشکریان اعتراض میکنه، محمد مگه یادت رفت خودت گفتی دست دزد قطع کن و چی شد؟ گفت الان زمانش نیست، ما توی جنگیم، دست این قطع میکردیم پناه میبرد به اون طرف، به دشمن میپیوست، تمام راز و رمز لشکر و تعداد این که ما چه نقشه داریم و چی کار میخوایم میکنیم به اون میداد، ما شکست میخوریم. نه، این مجازات موقتا تعطیل. خیلی خوب، این یه نمونه های زیادی میشه پیدا کرد. بنابراین اونی که میگن دست دزد رو قطع کن اگر دزدی کرد، بله یک روح داره. روحش چیه؟ دزدی بده، سرقت بده و سارق، دزد باید مجازات بشه. اما چطور مجازات بشه؟ مجازاتی که قابلیت اجرا در زمان و مکان داره، یعنی در قرن 21 ما بتوانیم این رو اجرا بکنیم. شما نمیتونید در قرن 21 دست دزد رو ببرید، کاری که طالبان و در ایران میکنن. خب اون موقع حفظ روح قانون چیه؟ دزدی بده، سارق بایستی مجازات بشه. چه مجازات؟ این دیگه برمیگرده به احکام ثانویه. احکام ثانویه میگه منطبق با زمان. اون موقع زندانمندان نبود، حتی اروپایی که خودشون، آمریکا و کانادا که اصلا هیچ، اینا که سرخپوستا بودن، کسی توش نبود. اروپا که اون موقع خودشو خیلی متمدن میدونه است، دزدا رو زنده تا آتیش میسوزون. آره اون موقع زندان نبود، اینا دست میبریدن، حالا که زندان هست. خب حالا دزدی میدونیم زندان. چه بسا 50 سال دیگه زندان هم ظالمانه باشه، بگیم زندان هم به درد نمیخوره. باید مثلا یه مجازاتی که اون موقع حالا چه خواهد شد اونو بتونیم عوضش بکنیم. یه چیز دیگه میدونید، در سطح اسلام وقتی که محمد مکه رو فتح کرد گفتن که بیاین بیعت کنید. من پیغمبر بودم اما حالا میخوام حکومت تعیین کنم، باید با من بیعت کنید. بیعت کنن، بیعت یعنی چی؟ بیعت یعنی رأی بدهید به من. اون موقع که رأی دادن به این صورت نبود، بیعت یعنی رأی بدید. و بیعت کردن هم اینطوری بود که میامدن دست میدادن مردم به هم دیگه، به هم دیگه اینجوری میبوسیدن. یه دی اومدن بیعت کردن و تعداد کمی بیعت نکردن و تاریخ میگه کسانی که با محمد بیعت نکردن در مکه زندگی میکردن، راحت هم زندگی میکردن، کسی که متعرض اونا نبود. یعنی چی؟ یعنی کسانی که حکومت رو قبول نداشتن میتوانستن راحت زمان پیغمبر رو زندگی کنن. حالا اینا کی میگن؟ طالبان و ایرانینا و حکومت مصری چی میگه؟ این حرفا رو از کجا در میارن؟ از همه مهمتر محمد گفت علاوه بر مردا زنها هم بایستی با من بیعت کنن. اما خب اون موقع گفت اجازه نمیداد دست هم دیگر صورت محمد و پیغمبر رو ماش کنن. اون زن 18 قرن قبل، 14 قرن قبل یک راه حل پیدا کرد. یه سطل آوردن، محمد دست کرد تو سطل آب، گفت هر زنی که حکومت آن قبول داره اونم دستشو بکنه تو آب در بیاره، میشه بیعت. خب در 14 قرن قبل زنها حق رأی داشتن در اون شبه جزیره عربستان. اینا حالا چی میگن؟ این اسلامه؟ بنابراین وظیفه ما زنها این است که احکام شریعت رو بشناسید و بدونید که چطور با همون شمشیری که میزنه حقوق شما رو قطع میکنه، شما رو با همون شمشیر باید بزنید حکومتش رو قطع بکنید. من وقتم تمومه، ببخشید. من اگه من فرصت بدم من 3 ساعت صحبت میکنم، حرف سر شما رو میبرم. ممنون از اینکه توجه کردید و تمام شد. خدا نگهدار شما. بله بله بله.
خیلی ممنون خانم عبادی. صحبت های شما هموار یک ایده ها و انرژی زیادی به ما میده. من خیلی به طور خلاصه مطلب به انگلیسی میخوام بگم که دوستانی که به فارسی صحبت نمی کنن بدونن که بحثا خوش چه مطالبی. مهمترین چیزی که شروع کردیم اینه که ما زبان مشترک بین زنان ایران و افغانستان زبان مشترک هست، مذهبی و تاریخی مشترک هست. بنابراین ما میتونیم با هم بپیوند. اگر my mind works on you one side. Okay, the main point that she mentioned in her speech is that Iranian women and Afghan women have a lot in common. We have a language in common, we have a culture in common, we have religion in common. So we have to find ways in common to fight the struggle we have is also in common. So how do we find ways? One of the ways is to focus on what we have done. The other thing is, initially, before we go to other strategies, she showed that we have to also be very conscious that at least the Taliban or the Iranian situation is not the making of our own culture. Certainly the Cold War and the international policy has a lot to do with the situation that we are in. So we have to also understand that and be able to analyze that situation. Then one of these, and this situation, especially on education, the Taliban are insisting that women should not have education beside their elementary schooling. But she mentioned that this goes complete. They do this in the name of Islam when it goes completely against the principle of Islam, which is thus actually education and belief in religion has to be people have to accept it. You can't force it on that. And the education especially is, I remember even on their Khomeini, they said, well, in Islam, they say you have to search for education, even if you have to go up to China, which at the time was the furthest way that you could go in search of knowledge. So we have that, and yet we get Taliban and we get other things. How do we fight with it? We use other examples. She gave a complete example of how the Baha'is in Iran set up a schooling. This is before the time of digital facilities. In fact, I remember even photocopying it is an early stage, but nonetheless, the Baha'is got together and they managed to organize underground education to the level that came to get their university graduate. Of course, their degree was not recognized in Iran, but then they started to come talk to international community and get the international community to recognize. I know, for instance, Carleton in Ottawa, Yale in US, and several other universities accepted the Baha'is, and they could go then for graduate studies. So this is a very successful study. There's today, of course, there are many other examples that we can talk when if you get a chance. But so she says we have examples, so we can use that and put pressure on international communities so that they would provide facilities. Everyone just focuses on what is missing, what difficulties. Well, there was, of course, there was also difficulties with the Baha'is setting up. In fact, it was the danger for their lives and all of that. And I mean, other people have written, and I'm happy later on if anyone is interested to discuss it more. But in fact, we can use those. We should not allow those difficulties to stop us from thinking of the initiative to how to fight. The other thing that she has focused with giving us different example is how we use Taliban are using religion but in fact their interpretation and their religious is their own interpretation, is not what Islam or religion says. It is true, all the Abrahamian religion, whether it is Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, are patriarchal. The interpretation has been very much of a male perspective, but that doesn't stop us from giving our interpretation and find our ways. So use the same rules that they are using for their usage. We use it to actually fight back and give the confidence and knowledge to, especially to young people who can use it. So in other words, she says, fight the enemy with your own weapon, so that we can success. And so those were the major examples. And of course, she also said, so we have to bring forces together. How can we bring forces together? Universities are one example. It's not the only example. It's one example where you can bring the activists, say, from the Iranian community and from the Afghan community activists together to share strategies, to learn from one another, but also involve other international organizations, human rights organizations and women's organizations, so that we can advance and make these alliances much broader, which is actually what, thanks to Iranian Studies Institute here, they have provided us that platform so that we can have this conversation. Well, this was, of course, there was a lot more into it, but I just did a quick summary of the main point. And now the floor is open. Maybe if there's time, we can take a couple of questions from Mrs. Ebadi before she has to leave. Any?
خیلی سلامت خانم عبادی، واقعا صحبت‌های شما از
سر بلندتر ببخشید.
خیلی ممنون خانم عبادی، صحبت‌های شما از قلب واقعا از قلب ما، از ذهن ما صحبت کردین. سوال ما این دست و تجربه خوبی در همراه ما شریک ساختین که ما بتونیم مثلا چی رقم میتونیم برای خانم‌ها راههایی را به وجود بیاریم که اونا بتونن به درس خود ادامه بدن. خب فعلا مثلا بعضی کشورها بورسی‌ها دارند برای افغانستان، برای خانم‌ها، ولی متأسفانه دختر خانم‌ها وقتی میخواین که سفر کنند اونا مثلا پاسپورت ندارن، یا مثلا اگر میخواین ویزه یک کشور دیگر بگیرن یا ای که سفر کنند بدون محرم اصلا اجازه ندارن. به نظر شما چی راه حل به این مشکل وجود داره که اگر خانم‌ها یا دختر خانم‌ها که برای اونا بورسی باشه یا ای که بخواین سفر کنند بدون محرم چی رقم مثلا امکان داره؟ مثلا حتی به ایران و پاکستان اونا هم ویزه راشون صادر نمیکنن، چون محرم ندارن، بدون محرم نمیتونن سفر کنن، ویزه هم نمیتونن با آسانی بگیرن.
May I just quickly translate a little bit of what the question is, and then we come to you, and then we will give the floor to
چطور دونو بدون جواب بدم؟ دونو بدون جواب بدم؟
دیگه هم بگیرم با هم جواب.
خب پس یه مداد من یادداشت کنم. همین بده باش همین می‌نویسم دیگه بیه.
The main question was, yeah, we have come up with some of the initiatives, but the problem, there are technical problem in the sense that even when we get grants and scholarship for young women that we can bring them, because the law in Afghanistan says women cannot travel without having a mahram, without having a male member of the family with them, and if they can't come, so they can't get a visa. They say even going to countries like Iran and Pakistan, which is the neighboring countries, they have the same problem. So sometimes we have come with initiatives, but there are this kind of obstacle, and so she's asking for advice. I take one more question and then give the floor.
Yes, I can open the floor to the person online.
Yeah, sorry.
تشکر محترم اول خود تشکر که توی برنامه را شما گرفتید و بالاخره خیلی خوب است که تجارب شما تجارب خود یعنی خانم‌های ایرانی با افغانا و ما با شما شریک میکنیم و میتونیم به خاطر پیشرفت به خاطر حل مسائل از استفاده بکنیم. سوال من این است که ما در نمی مقطع زمانی که طالبان آمدن 20 سال قبل و حالا به نام اسلام انواعی از جرایم جنایات حتی نرفتن دخترها به مکتب این مسلماً ترین حق زنها و دخترها در اسلام است که در این هیچ شک و شبهه‌ای وجود نداره و اسلام اولین آیه‌اش آمد به اقرا بخوان. اما طالبان آمدن بسیار جنایات زیاد را مرتکب شدن که این سبب شد که ما نمیتونیم از این کار بکنیم که یعنی از اسلام یک چیز جور کردن که مردم وادار ساختن که از اسلام فاصله بگیره. و همیال ما بسیار از شاید کسایی را داریم که حتی عملا دیدیم که گفتن همی اسلامی که در افغانستان است و طالب آوردن ما از همی اسلام منصرف هستیم. حالا با در نظر داشتی که ما نداریم اصلا واقعا ما عالم دینه که همین چیزی که امروز بر علیه ما استفاده میکنن از به نام اسلام، اما متاسفانه ما همی علمش نداریم، همی دانش نداریم. و اگر بر بگردیم به خود تاریخ، در تاریخ هم ما زنای متاسفانه مثلا در بین فقهایی که نظر دادن زیادترش مردا بوده. بسیار شاید زنای کم ما داریم، شاید بسیار این تعدادشان کم است. پس ما چطور میتونیم در این مقطع دخترای افغانستان یا زنای افغانستان بتونیم یعنی راهکارهایی را برای از اینا پیدا بکنیم که یا برن اسلام عمیق مطالعه بکنن و دیگه نگذارن که شاید نسل ما رفته اما در نسل بعدی ما چی کردن میکنیم.
One more question I'm going to give the floor to the person online if you don't mind. Please.
سلام تقدیم میکنم به دوستای عزیزی که دوجه تشریف دارم و به خانم دکتر. افتخار دارم که شما را امروز هیچ آرزو داشتم که از نزدیک ببینم و در مجلس آنلاین شما را میبینم. از گفتهای بسیار عالمانه و منطقیتان مستفید شدیم و از هم مهمتر دوست بسیار عزیز خودت هما جان و هودفر را میبینم. سلام به هما جان و هودفر که ما اونا مشترکاً کارهای زیاد روی قوانین افغانستان کردیم، به خصوص قانون خانواده تجارب بسیار زیاد را با هم شریک ساختیم و اندوختهای زیاد را با هم شریک کردیم. ما بسیار برای من جالب یک مسئله افتید در جریان صحبت‌های شما که طبیعی است که بین دو کشور مشترکات زیاد است، مشترکات لسانی است، مذهبی است و ما در یک مسیر قرار داریم. دست ما از اسلام مایه میگیریم و خانم‌های ما طبیعتاً از آدرس دین خیلی در محدودیت قرار گرفتن، به خصوص توسط آخوندها و توسط طالبها که امروز حاکم هستند در ایران و در افغانستان. و چیزی که امروز دیده میشه در لااقل در ایران دانشگاه ها باز است و مکاتب باز است. دخترها با وجود از اینکه آل کوشش میکنن که محدودیت‌های برشان وضع شود، مثل از اینکه ما شنیدیم که لایه عفاف و حجاب میخواین که تصویب بکنن که سر صدای زیاد هم در ایران به خاطر از این بلند شده. و چیزی که من در قسمت قتل مهسا امینی دیدم که یک انقلاب برپا شد بالاخره مرد و زن ایران به پا استاد شدن به خاطر از این تبعیض جنسیتی که در اونجا وجود داره، به خاطر این تشددی که علیه خانم‌ها در ایران توسط رژیم آخوندی وجود داره. ولی در مقایسه با افغانستان وقتی که می‌بینیم که حال دروازه‌های مکاتب برای دخترای افغانستان بسته است، دروازه‌های مکاتب برای دروازه‌های یونیورسیتی بسته است. شما گفتین که ما میتونیم وقتی همونطور که مشترکات ما با هم یکی است، ما میتونیم که مشکلات ما یکی است، ما میتونیم که راه حل هم یک جا مسیر انتخاب بکنیم و یک جا مبارزه بکنیم، از آموزشگاه شروع بکنیم. ما وقتی که به وضعیت فعلی که افغانستان دروازه‌های مکاتبش و یونیورسیتیش برای دخترای افغانستان بسته شده توسط رژیم مستبد و یا گروه مستبد که ما رژیم هم گفتن نمیتونیم، یک گروه مستبد غاصب هستن که آمدن افغانستان گرفتن. چطور ما میتونیم که ما ایرای حل از آموزشگاه شروع کنیم؟ شما بدیل از این چی پیشنهاد میکنیم در وضعیتی که امروز تمام خانمای افغانستان از کار محروم هستن و در وضعیتی که امروز دخترای افغانستان خانه نشین هستن و در یگانه مجتمعی که میتونسته که یک تخم به خاطر مبارزه اوج کاشته شود که امروز او نیست. چطور میتونیم که ما این مبارزه را در بین خانم‌ها امروز ببینیم که اعتراضات خودجوش وجود داره ولی زود سرکوب میشه، بدترین شکنجه با خانم‌های معترض صورت میگیره. امروز صداها خفه شده در پشت دروازه های بسته در حالی که صورت خود میپوشونن با شعارهایی که نوشته کردن او را در از طریق سوشال میدیا میخواین که گوش جهانیان باز بکنه، ولی امروز دیده میشه که گوش جهانیان کر شده. امروز من شنیدم که نماینده بایدن میگه که خب حالت افغانستان در اولویت نزد امریکا قرار نداره، افغانستان در اولویت جهان قرار نداره. این بدبختی زنای افغانستان تا چه وقت ادامه پیدا بکنه؟ ما از کجا شروع کنیم تا برای حل برسیم؟ این یک مسئله است که با آموزش میتونیم که راه استبداد رو بگیریم، با فرهنگ استبداد مبارزه کنیم.
آقا جان خیلی ممنون. برمیگردیم به خانم عبادی که جواب سوالا رو بده. بعد یک سوال دیگه هم هست که بعد بفرمایید.
خواهران عزیزم، مشکلات افغانستان رو میدانم من مثل شما، همونطور که شما میدانید از شرایط ایران، منم از شرایط افغانستان میدانم که بیشتر از دبستان نباید درس بخونیم، میدونم که حتی زنها حق ندارن آرایشگر زنانه داشته باشن. یعنی معلوم نیست که من بخوام موامو توی افغانستان گیسم کوتاه بکنم کجا باید برم وقتی که حتی آرایشگر زنانه حق نداره باشه و دیگه خیلی چیزای دیگه همه اینا رو ما میدونیم. اگر این مشکلات رو نداشتین شما و اگر این مشکلات رو ایران نداشت، خب ما اینجا دور هم جمع نمیشدیم که رفتیم زندگی خودمون رو میگردیم. مثل زنای کانادایی مگه اینجا میان که از این حرفا گوش کنن؟ بنابراین ببخشید من صادقانه بگم، وقتی بخواید حرف بزنید از مشکلات حرف نزنید. اولین چیزی که به نظرتون میاد مشکلات نباشه. مشکل هست و همین دلیل اینجا نشستیم. به راه حل فکر کنید. البته که زنا بدون محرم، بدون یک مرد مذهب، میخوام ببخشید دیگه مشهورم بگم، بدون یک مرد نرخر که کنارش واسطه نمیتونه از کشور خارج شه، اینا رو میدونم. اما یه مسئله، اگر این نبود که ما اینجا نبودیم. چرا اومدیم اینجا؟ بنابراین واقعا یه توصیه مادرانه من، چون من سنم و سمتون بالا قدیمی ترم، این است که مشکلات زیاد بهش فکر نکنید. اون وقت نمیتونید هیچ کار بکنید. راه حل فکر کنید. اون وقت اولین گام رو که برداشتید، اولین راه رو که رفتید، قدم اول راه بنمایدد که چون باید رفت. شما از الان فکر نکنید که این دختر که دبیرستانش تموم کرد حالا میخواد بره دانشگاه چجوری از کشور خارج بشه. من میدونم توی همین امسال، یعنی 2 ماه قبل، یک نفر خیر از امارات بورسیه کرده بود حدود 10-12 تا دختر رو که بیان درس بخونن. این دخترها تازه همراه با محرمشون، با پدر یا برادرشون هم از افغانستان میخواستن بیان بیرون که با پول یه اماراتی در کشور امارات که کشور اسلامی درس بخونن اجازه ندادن. اینا هست، البته که هست، اما یه قرار بشه ما از مشکلات شروع کنیم، خب هیچ وقت هیچی نمیشه. از راه حل شروع کنیم، بگیم ما بخوایم این کارو بکنیم. خب حالا بریم ببینیم چه کار میتونیم این کارو بکنیم. بعد اینکه شریعت رو زنا کم بلدن یه واقعیت دردناکه. چرا دردناکه؟ برای اینکه به این میرسه که جامعه دو قطبی میشه، یا میگن مسلمانیم یا اصلا مسلمان نیستیم، همه رو بندازین دور. خب دو دسته میشه، شما طرفداراتون رو از دست میدید. شما وقتی که میگی من این حقم رو میخوام، اون وقت در مقابل شما یه زن مسلمان میشونن، اون میگه من میخوام برم بهشت و جهنمم، من بهشت و جهنم قبول دارم، میخوام این دنیا که چرا شدم دارم میخواد اون دنیا برم بهشت. خب شما باید یه جوری حرف بزنید که اون رو هم جذب بکنید. آقا مسلمانی؟ آفرین، منم مسلمانم، اما راهش این نیست. برای اینکه شما زنای مسلمان رو جذب کنید هیچ راه حلی ندارید جز اینکه مذهب رو یاد بگیرید. یاد گرفتنش هم دختر عزیزم خیلی سخت نیست. کتاب خونه اینا که من تمام میگم، از باور کنید از آستینم در نیاوردم. منم از کتابا خوندم، منم تو کتابا خوندم. بنابراین یه مقدار سخته. شما یه مقدار دیرتر شروع کردید، خب اما شروع کنید. من نمیدونم سرگذشت من رو تا چقدر میدونید یا نمیدونید، ولی که من به هر حال من 40 ساله که با این حکومت سرشاخ میشم. زندانم رفتم، بلاحضرم اومده که حالا اون بماند یه داستانه دیگری است، اما هیچ وقت نتونستم به من مارک ارتداد بزنن. تحت هیچ شرایط نتونستم بگن که تو مسلمان نیستی. برای اینکه تا گفتم مسلمان بلافاصله یه چیزی گذاشتم جلوشون. بنابراین ببینید راحت نیست، میدونم سخت. دبیرستان زیرزمینی درست کردن سخت، مشکلات داره، کلاس‌های آنلاین درست کردن راحت نیست، گوشی هوشمند فرستادن از طریق قاچاق سخته، درس خوندن شریعت سخته، اینا سخته، اما اینا راه حلایی است که جواب میده. ما فقط خواهرای عزیزم، من چیزی که به هموطنهای خودم میگم، نشستن و شکوه و شکایت چه راه به جایی نمیبره. از این دانشگاه به اون دانشگاه ما برم گله بکنم که حکومت حق من خورده، خب فقط این است که میگن متاسف. اما بالاخره باید یه کاری کرد. و اگر فکر میکنید آمدید اینجا که فکر کنید یه کاری بایستی کرد، این چیزیست که به نظرم به جواب میرسه.
She basically said all of what you have said is all about the complaints about the problem. We all know problem. You know the Iranian women's problem. We know the Afghanis problem. Don't start sitting and reflecting on the problem only. Think about the solution. What are the ways we can solve that? So that's, if we start with trying to find solution, then it also gives us more energy to do things. Look at the successful examples like what she had spotted. The other part of the questions were mostly focused, okay, we don't have a lot of progressive Islamists who will give a pro-women interpretation. But she says, well, we need to learn. There are all these, 40 years ago, you could complain a lot more, but now there are more women who have written, there are more things to write. to read. So it's hard. It means working. It means put a lot of energy into it, but it's possible. And there, you have no other way except learning. You have to fight back with their claim of Islam with another Islam that you present. And she said, although she had been arrested and always put under pressure, they could never tell her that she's not a good Muslim, because every time they said something about Islam, she had the counter, but argument, but from within Islam. So she could always argue her case that way, and that's the way we want to learn. And this is my little bit of I think it's very important. There are actually, as opposed to 40 years ago when the Iranian revolution happened, there are very many women who are progressive. We have been trying to get people to actually invite women, progressive Muslims, to talk about it, but very few people are willing, very few people of the activist world are willing to put their energy in that. So partly because a lot of us, because we are secularists, we don't want to go that route, but that's also partly comes to the way we look at things. So that was an important aspect to actually, that we have to fight back with the same weapon that they are taking away our rights. So we get two very short questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. First of all, my name is Ali Sumit, and thank you so much, Mr. Ebadi, for being here today. It was and it is one of my greatest privilege to see you. And a little bit about myself. I am a blind person. I am a war survivor. I lost my eyesight at the age of 7 in the civil war in Afghanistan in 1992. But never ever disability has put any obstacles on my way to succeed. So I avoid talking about myself, but I go to the question because I know you don't have a lot of time. خانم شیرین عبادی، سوال من این است از شما که شما میفهمید زیادتر در این مبارزات خانم‌ها تنها هستند. چطور میشه که مردا هم همین خانم‌ها را کمک کنن، خانم‌ها را جوین کنن یا همکاری کنن؟ چرا که حالت خانم‌ها را که من میشنوم و میبینم به عنوان یک فعال حقوق بشر که من خودم گذشته حقوق بشری زیاد دارم، هم تهدید به مرگ شدیم. I received death threat and all that. همین استراتژی شما یا استراتژی‌هایی که شما پیشنهاد میکنین. What strategies do you suggest so that men also could join women in overcoming the challenges that are present in Afghanistan and Iran? Because in my opinion, the challenges that women are going through are not women's challenges only. They are men's problems as well. Why my main fellow citizens stay silent and do nothing and just look at the situation? Why women only on the ground? So that's one question that I have. I have two questions, but I avoid the second. So I just would like to get your thoughts and strategies that what do you suggest based on your experience, based on your visits that you pay to certain countries and familiarity with cultures. Thank you.
So let's take one quickly. Zarqa was very, very short.
تشکر امیدوار ممنون خانم ابادی، موارد بسیار خوب شما شریک کردین. همونطور که شما گفتین زنهای افغانستان و ایران، زنهای افغانستان ایران زبان مشترک، فرهنگ مشترک، درد مشترک و راه حل مشترک داریم. اون متاسفانه در افغانستان وضعیت است که فرهنگ مشترک که افغانستان و ایران دارن طالب کم کم امور از ما میگیره. مثلا طالب اجازه نمیده که ما افغانستانی ها نوروز تجدید کنیم. و اینکه ما شما امو زبان مشترک را که داریم، طالب کم کم اثرگذاری داره بالای زبان مشترک که افغانستانی ها و ایرانی ها در طول چندین هزار سال با هم ما داشتیم. و بس راه حل مشترک، من کاملا با شما موافق هستم. مشکلات بسیار زیاده است. تا 20 سال گذشته ما همیشه تاکید کردیم که وضعیت اگر یک روز یک حکومت افراطی در افغانستان ایجاد شود، مطمئنا این تاثیرگذاری خواهد داشت اول بالای کشورهای همسایه و بعد از اون کشورهای منطقه. همین گونه که 40 سال حکومت ایران بالای افغانستان تاثیر گذاشت. واقعا ما امروز متاثر از اون سیاست‌های خودها در ایران هستیم در طول 40 سال گذشته. با وضعیت افغانستان امروز به این شکل اگر ادامه پیدا کنه، در قدمی اول کشورهای همسایه و بعد از کشورهای منطقه و بعد از کشورهای جهان متاثر خواهند شد. مثلا امروز یکی از کشورهای افریقایی
اسلامیستا ادعا میکنن که سن طالبا گفتن که دخترها در 9 سالگی باید ازدواج کنن و ما باید سن ازدواج 9 ساله و دخترها در نظر بگیریم. در قسمت راه حل مشترک شما هم گفتین، ما همیشه پیشنهاد کردیم و پیشنهاد من است که تا زمانی که زنهای افغانستان و ایران یک جنبش مشترک فراملتی را ایجاد نکنند ما هیچگاه نمیتونیم که دستاورد داشته باشیم و هیچگاه نمیتونیم در مقابل این خشونت‌ها و ظلم و تعدی که امروز افغانستان و ایران با مواجه هستند ما مبارزه کنیم. ولی این که ما چطور همین جنبش فراملتی زنان بین افغانستان و ایران ایجاد میکنیم یکی از بحث‌های بسیار چالش برانگیز است. در طول 2 سال گذشته ما بسیار تلاش کردیم، کار کردیم با گروه‌های مختلف زنها داخل افغانستان، بیرون افغانستان، با دوستای ایرانی ما تلاش کردیم ولی تا امروز ما یعنی موفق نشدیم که همچین یک جنبش را ایجاد کنیم. به نظر شما در شرایط فعلی چقدر امکانات از این که ما بتونیم یک جنبش فراملتی را بین زنهای افغانستان، ایران و بعد از اون بین زنهای منطقه ایجاد کنیم چگونه میسر خواهد شد و ما چی باید بکنیم؟ زنهای افغانستان چی بکنن، زنهای ایران چی کنن؟
I very quickly just give a summary of the questions. The first question was about, okay, we have women in Iran and Afghanistan are very active and are trying to struggle against this situation. But what is the role of men? Where are the men? How do we get men involved? Because the problem women are facing is not only a problem for women, it's for society. So that was the brief of the first question. The second question is, okay, we know that we have we have similar problems. We want to get together and organize a transnational women's movement between Iranian and Afghanistan and women of the region, and hopefully the wider transnational. But it's not so easy, even though she said they have been working for 2 years, but we haven't got much result. So that's one of the other questions, that how to establish such a situation.
در مورد سوال شما دوست عزیز که چطور مردها رو میشود جذب کرد، این وظیفه زناست. زنای فمینیست متاسفانه گاهی از اوقات چه در ایران افغانستان چه سایر جهادین سایر نقاط دنیا هم این هست، فمینیستای افراطی باعث میشن که یعنی افراطگرایی در فمینیسم باعث میشود که مردم خودشون کنار بکشن. زنها بایستی نه فقط از حقوق زن، از حقوق بشر صحبت کنید. ما حقوق بشر میخوایم. آزادی بیان اگر شما داشته باشید، اگر یک کشوری آزادی بیان داشته باشه، آیا طالبان میتونه جلوی مدرسه رفتن بچه رو بگیره؟ اگر عدالت باشه فقط زنان نون رو برای و کار رو برای خودشون میخوان یا برای جامعه میخوان؟ بنابراین این چگونگیش این است که به جای حقوق زن، یعنی فقط برابری بر اساس جنسیت، شما صحنه رو بزرگتر ببینید، یعنی حقوق بشر، کل حقوق بشر، آزادی بیان، آزادی تحصیل و عدالت اجتماعی، تمام اون حقوقی که در اونجا پیش بینی شده. فقط راجع به برابری بر اساس جنسیت کار نکنید. خب این باعث میشه که مردها هم خودشون رو در این منازعه، در این دعوا شریک میدونن. حالا دعوا سر حقوق بشره، خب حق منم هست و واقعا خواهران نباید افراطگری بکنن. ما زنیم و ما برتریم و ما باید نه، اصلا اینجور حرفا نیست. ما هم انسانیم. آقا بیا بشیم مثل انسان با هم صحبت کنیم. این یعنی راه حلش در حقیقت از نه حقوق زن بلکه از حقوق بشر میگذره. در مورد زبان و اینکه پشتو سعی میکنه زبان رو از بین ببره، متاسفانه گزارشاش رو خوندم و یکی از مشکلات هم همینه. زنده بودن زبان بستگی داره به همیت و تلاش کسانی که معتقد به یه فرهنگ هستن. ما توانستیم، ما و شما، چون هر دوتا به زبان فارسی دری و فارسی دیگه، ما هر دوتا توانستیم زبانمون رو قرنها حفظ بکنیم. اعراب آمدن، زبانمون رو ندادیم. مغولا آمدن، زبان ندادیم. مصر و اون تمدن شکوهمند زبان و فرهنگش داد، ما ندادیم. بنابراین یه ذره نگاه کنید به پشت سرتون، یه ذره نگاه کنید به فردوسی که چه خدمتی کرد هم به ایران هم به افغانستان. برای که میگه ما یکی هستیم که نذاشت زبان از بین بره. نذارید زبان از بین بره. البته که میخوان زبان شما رو از بین ببرن، برای اینکه شما رو مثل یک درخت پوسیده، یه درختی که از درون کرم میخوره میپوسه، احتیاج به تبر نداره، یه باد کوچیک میندازتش. ملتی که زبان و فرهنگش رو نتونه حفظ بکنه مثل اون درختی میمونه که از درون کرم میخوره، از بین میره. مقاومت کنید. میگم مشکلات زیاده، اگه نبود که ما اینجا نبودیم. مشکلات زیاده، مقاومت کنید، نذارید زبان رو فراموش بشه. راه حلش هم باز میگم تحصیل تحصیل تحصیل. تحصیل رسمی اجازه نمیدن، تحصیل زیرزمینی، تحصیل آنلاین، تحصیل از طریق تلویزیون، به هر طریق بایستی این زبان رو و فرهنگ رو سینه به سینه حفظ کنید. نوروز رو حفظ کنید. چرا اینقدر ما نوروز بعدشون میاد؟ ممنونم. و بعدا ما جشنهای زیادی داریم، اینا باید حفظ بشه. خب میدونم میگید الان اگه بریم توی فلان میدان بخوایم چهارشنبه سوری رو داشته باشیم یا جشنهای دیگر رو، خب نمیزنن. آره نمیزنن، اما تو خونه هاتون که میزنن. یاد بچه هاتون باید بدید، یاد نوه هاتون بدید. نذارید از بین شما رو از بین ببرن. تا به الان ما و شما مقاومت کردیم، از این به بعدم مقاومت ادامه داره. فقط طالبان که نیست، هجوم زبان انگلیسی نباید بذاریم از بین بره.
She mentions that one of the ways is not to do the extreme, not to focus only on women. If we want women's rights, it's not only for women, but it's for society. But also to get to find other ways. Like if we just only talk about women's rights, then we ourselves are excluding men. But if we talk about human rights include everybody. So we bring people together. So there are also strategies that we can adopt. It's not easy, but it is possible. So one of that, and in terms of language and culture, she mentions that yes, of course, the Taliban are trying to destroy and take away the vitality of Farsi and Dari languages and put the pressure mostly on Pashtun. But at the same time, we have examples in the history. I mean, Iran was captured by the Arabs and by Mughal, but one of the ways people tried to save was to save the language through literature, through celebrating the ceremonies. And if we can't do it publicly in the squares, but we can do it in our home. We can teach our children. So one way to struggle against all these is to keep the language and find ways that are suitable for our context to do it. So, and we have done it for thousands of years. We certainly, if we try, we can do it again. Learning our literature and culture is the way we can protect ourselves and also get our rights in the process. Thank you. I want to thank Mrs. Ebadi. I know she had said she will give us only a little bit of time. We have taken a lot more time. I know she has other engagement. We want to thank her for her contribution. Thank you very much. This was
ممنونم از اینکه این فرصت رو به من دادید و خیلی خوشحالم که انشالله راهی که شروع کردید با موفقیت ادامه بدید و اتحاد کنگره بزرگ زنان ایران و افغان رو از همین دانشگاه تورنتو شروع کنیم. قربانم خیلی ممنون. Thank you. قربانم خدا نگهدار. خدا نگهدار دوستان. خدا حافظ.
Okay, I believe next we have.
خدا نگهدار همگی.
Next we have, I believe, a brief video message from Dr. Seema Samar, who is the inaugural chairperson of the Afghan Independent Human Rights Commission and former Minister of Women's Affairs in Afghanistan in 2001. Dr. Samar's relentless advocacy for human rights, women's rights, and peace in Afghanistan have earned her international recognition. And she has received numerous awards and honors, including the UN Nansen Refugee Award and the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Public Service. So can we have that video, please, now? Yes.
Unfortunately, the sad reality is that we see and witness the violence against women all over the world continues without any accountability and justice. But unfortunately, the violence against women in Afghanistan since the Taliban took over in 15th of August 2021 is really increased in the highest level that no one have seen it before. The complete segregation of women and removal of women from public life is happening under the Taliban regime. It's similar to the racial apartheid of South Africa. And this is practically a gender apartheid applying in Afghanistan or implementing in Afghanistan by the people who are in power. They officially put ban on girls' education beyond 6th grade, and they officially put ban on women's working and access to parks, access to public bath, access to any other enjoyment, and even they are not allowed to work at the beauty parlor as well. So all these fundamental rights of women is violated, and unfortunately the world is just watching and only condemning the situation in Afghanistan and watching the violation of women's rights and major crimes committed in Afghanistan. Some brave women of Afghanistan came to the street in order to protest, but they faced violence. They were arrested, they were tortured, they were even killed. And unfortunately, Afghanistan practically turned to be the biggest prison in the world for women. It's similar to our neighboring countries. It's a year ago where Mahsa Amini was killed by the religious police in Iran. And it was massive and continued protests by the people, men and women in Iran, inside Iran and also outside Iran for so long. But unfortunately, the regime in Iran also violated the people's rights to peaceful protest. They were arrested, they were tortured, and they were even executed in the prisons, or people put under pressure. In both countries, all these are applied under the name of the religion, application of religion, and also the application of culture and tradition of those countries. Their friends, it's not religion. It is a political action to control, to reduce the resistance of women and their empowerment of women in countries. So I think we do have a very long road to go for freedom, for human rights, and for equality. And I think the slogan that the Iranian sisters choose, woman, life, and freedom is something, a very, very basic human rights, and we all have to stand for those if we really want a peaceful country and a democratic country where people could live with dignity. So I think one way is that this road to freedom, this road to equality is long, and we have to work together and be united in order to be able to change the situation in favor of human rights, in favor of human dignity. The problem in the violence against women in Afghanistan and also in Iran is not only the problem of women in Afghanistan and Iran. I think it's a problem of humanity. And we all have a responsibility to protect and stand by women in Afghanistan and Iran in order to reach to a freedom to be able to exercise our basic fundamental rights and freedom, and stop the gender apartheid in Afghanistan, and also stop the culture of impunity on sexual gender-based violence, which continues not only in Afghanistan and Iran, but also in many other countries. And that would be a long way, and that requires a united, committed approach to solve the problem. And I hope that we will be able to walk to this long road, and a long and difficult road together. And thank you.
Okay, I think because we don't have much time, we go next to the next video, which is another short one, and then we will open the floor for our discussants to present.
Yeah, so we have one more video message from Ms. Heather Barr, who is co-director of Women's Rights at Human Rights Watch. She's a longtime and very vocal ally and advocate for Afghan and Iranian women, and it's thanks in large part to the pressure of Human Rights Watch and raising this framing, this gender apartheid framing continually in public space that we are here today, so that we're able to be at this place today. So, and then we'll open up to the discussion portion of the proceedings. Thanks.
Hi, I'm so glad to have a chance to talk to you today. I'm really sorry not to be able to at least be joining on Zoom, but I'm heading for the airport shortly to go and bother some diplomats in New York. So I'm glad to be able to send a video at least. And I'm really, really honored to be sharing this space with Dr. Shirin Ebadi and my old friend, Dr. Seema Samar. They've both been such extraordinary heroes in the fight for human rights and the fight for gender justice. And it feels very powerful to be able to say their names in one sentence. And it also feels like it's, it's related to the fact that we've seen such growing solidarity in the last 2 years between the women's rights movements in Iran and in Afghanistan. And this connection, this solidarity, of course, has been born through enormous pain and the pain and the anger that women in both of these countries have experienced over the last 2 years. Women in both of these countries are facing extraordinary hardship and risks, and they've responded with extraordinary courage, risking their lives to stand up again and again on the streets in the most public way against the men who are oppressing them. But we have to say that this isn't just a story about these two countries and the extraordinary women's movements in Afghanistan and Iran. We are undeniably in the middle of a global backlash against women's rights, which is touching women in many countries. The right of women and girls to study and to work, to be leaders, to control their own bodies, to live free from violence, to express themselves, and to organize is under attack in different ways in a growing number of countries. These attacks are often happening in tandem with attacks on our LGBT sisters and brothers. And another small ray of light in this very difficult situation is the fact that we're also seeing growing solidarity between women's rights movements and LGBT rights activists, including in Afghanistan and in Iran. Women's rights experts from different parts of the world are describing what they see as Talibanization in a growing number of countries. And it's clear that the tolerance and legitimization that the Taliban are seeing from the international community is both a symptom and a driver of this broader backlash against women's rights. What happens in Afghanistan and in Iran has implications for women and girls everywhere on this planet. The situation in Afghanistan has really highlighted in a painful way the limited tools that are available to respond to this kind of a situation. Afghan women have tried everything they could think of. They've pleaded for help at the Human Rights Council and at the Security Council. They've pinned hopes on the International Criminal Court to bring indictments. They've called on feminist foreign policy countries, including Canada, to provide leadership in trying to bring together a coherent and rights-based response to the women's rights crisis in Afghanistan. None of these efforts have been especially successful, and none of them have succeeded in halting the Taliban's attacks on the rights of women and girls. Women in Afghanistan have also protested. They've started underground schools. They've distributed food to families who are starving, who are, of course, disproportionately women-headed households. They've fought to be in the rooms where decisions are being made about their country's future, and they've seen those doors slammed shut in their face over and over again. I'm sure that you all know that in recent weeks we've watched as some Afghan women went on hunger strike, demanding a more just international response to this crisis, and calling for the situation to be recognized as gender apartheid. It's so incredibly painful to see women literally starving themselves to try to make the world stop looking away from what's happening to them. It's a demand for all of us to find new ways to stand with them and to acknowledge that their fight is the fight for the rights of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Really powerful words from our three distinguished guest speakers. We're going to now switch to a slightly more interactive discussion format. So we have four panelists representing various aspects of the issues. And we're going to start with Professor Homa Hoodfar again at Concordia University and Women Living Under Muslim Laws. And she's going to talk a little bit more about the importance of the gender apartheid framing. Why now? Why gender apartheid? These issues are not new. So she'll say a little bit more around why this is an important concept that we're employing now to fight this struggle. Homa, I'll give we'll about 4 or 5 minutes, and
I will actually be even shorter because I want other people.
Okay, perfect. So I will let you then keep your time, and
just let me know when it's.
I'll give you a notice. Perfect. Thank you.
Actually, after so much has been said, but I just wanted to add some of the arguments have been that why do we have to have gender apartheid when we have all these other human rights, women's rights are human rights, and we have gender prosecution, and so what is another UN convention will add to us? What does it give us if we direct so much energy? Well, one of the answers is yes, we have all those things, but the fact is none of those things so far, as Heather said, has given us very much power and very much power of a persuasion in the international community. Having a gender apartheid convention, just like racial apartheid, it gives the legitimacy to advocates to actually put their claim in by more force to the international community. The other factor is if we have the gender prosecution is a long process, and we will have some of our other presenter afterwards to talk about it more, but it hasn't ever resulted in anything for anyone. And also there are a lot more problematic. You can't really mobilize people, public towards that. But apartheid, because of the long politicization of the concept, everyone knows. So it's easier to mobilize the public for it. So it gives us that the name and shame is very important aspect, so we can shame people, and also it gives us the power. So when the governments, like if government of Canada or Britain or France or any other, or Qatar is doing and dealing with Taliban as though they are legitimate government, we can shame them through the legal processes, because based on international law, then they should not deal with the regime that is the apartheid regime. So it gives us those kind of power for mobilization. It does give it also sent a message to the rest of the world, not just the Taliban, that this kind of policies are not acceptable. There are a lot more that I can say, and I'm sure some of you know, but it's very important to always, when people say, why do we want another convention? We have all these other, we have CEDAW, yes, but the fact is CEDAW has not talked about gender apartheid. Other conventions have not done it. Okay, you don't want to have another convention for gender apartheid? Open CEDAW, add gender apartheid. You don't want to have another convention? Open racial apartheid and add gender, because the description is actually there, except that gender apartheid is actually impacts human lives much more than it did under racial apartheid. These people could get together in their own neighborhood. Now women cannot get out of their house, they can't work, they can't have any, right? So it's actually quite a powerful tool. So don't let international community and government tell you it doesn't make any difference. In fact, it does make much difference, and we do have to push for it. There's mobilization is there. We should not let the ball drops at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Homa. Beautifully succinct, and a very nice framing, I think, for our next speaker, who will be Ms. Freshta Karimi and I apologize in advance if I'm mispronouncing this organization, Qanoon Ghushtonky. She's going to speak a little bit more about the relationship between gender apartheid and gender persecution, and I think also where it can be employed in a situation like Afghanistan, where we don't actually have a recognized government in place. So if you would like to come, and I will ask you to keep your comments to about 4 or 5 minutes so we have time for discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Homa, and thank you, Sarah, and for organizing this important session at a very critical situation for Afghan women and girls. As we already, Peter Barr and Professor Homa has talked about the international treaties, the international conventions which are already existing. I just want to name them again, that the gender apartheid has already been prohibited and criminalized in international laws through 3 primarily international treaties. So, and I will just quickly name them. That the first one is the International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, the International Convention on Suppression and Punishment of Crimes of Apartheid, and the third one is the Rome Statutes of International Criminal Court, where we have the gender prosecution mentioned in that statutes. However, none of the 3 international laws is explicitly criminalizing the gender apartheid. We do need to recognize gender apartheid as a crime against humanity and should be considered as an international law. Why? I will just quickly go, like, there are 6 main reasons that why do we need at this situation the gender apartheid to be known as a separate international law, because the gender prosecution is not as broad as gender apartheid, because what's going on now in Afghanistan, it's not only gender prosecution, because there are so many other reasons, so there are so many other discriminations against women that we do need a separate international law or treaty, which is could be called gender apartheid in Afghanistan, and of course, and in Iran and other countries. Defining gender apartheid as an international crime would emphasize that countries worldwide and international communities to have a duty to adopt effective measures to put an end to criminal actions and practices against humanity. Second, after criminalizing gender apartheid, other nations, groups, or governments would be discouraged from establishing a discriminative system of isolation, humiliation, and oppressing women and girls in social, cultural, economic, and political aspects systematically, where in Afghanistan, life has become a prison for them, which is a systematic discrimination created for women, and that has changed to a prison, like the country has become a prison for women right now. Third, the severe consequences of gender apartheid, though less talked about than other international crimes such as war crimes, genocides, all that, it's not, we don't talk as much as we talk about those crimes, but gender apartheid can be even more severe in some cases. It can lead to social collapse, impart incorrect moral values to the future of our next generation, such as like in Afghanistan right now, how women and girls are treated. Our next generation, especially our children, the boys, they think this is how women should be treated. So this will, this will lead to the future of all our new generation, that they will be treating women the same that they are treated now. That they will think this is part of our religion, this is part of our culture. This is a human responsibility, extends to all nations, not to remain silent against the suffering and humiliation of millions of individuals. It's crucial to take practical and effective steps to combat such an injustice and recognizing gender apartheid as an international crime. And this is a significant stride in this direction. If gender apartheid is recognized as an international crime, that will lead us to establish strong, serious measures. We can hope that these crimes will be ceased in Afghanistan and also in Iran, and rescuing millions of women and girls from horrors of such oppressions. The same as in the past, the world, got together and they were united against the apartheid and racial discrimination in South Africa. Can't the women in Afghanistan and Iran, expect the same and do not have, can they have the same right and expect from the world to have something, and they have the united together to, criminalize and recognize gender apartheid as an international community, as an international law. So in conclusion, I would like to say that considering gender apartheid as an international crime is not just a legal matter, it's also a moral and humanitarian duty for humanity to prevent the downfall of human dignity, especially for women and girls, and family bonds. This action represents a significant step toward justice and equality for women and girls who have suffered systematic discrimination for extended period. So let's put an end to this unforgivable justice and work together so that one day we will have this successfully, as a law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Freshta. And everyone's doing a fabulous time keeping to time. I appreciate that. You're making my job a lot easier. I think next we're going to go to Professor Vrinda Narain. Do we have Vrinda online? She's joining us. She's going to speak very briefly about gender apartheid as a mechanism for advocacy and accountability. And yeah, you have about 4 or 5 minutes, Vrinda.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Homa. Good to see everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person. I'm going to use my time not to go over what's been said, Sarah, so I'm going to not answer that question. I want to just quickly make 3 points, but picking up on Heather's words. So the first point I'd like to make is that I think that we have to recognize that the largest pro-democracy movements in Iran and Afghanistan are women-led. And I think the world has to recognize that women as leaders, the only standing opposition to the regime in Iran as well as to the Taliban. The second point I'd like to make is that recognizing Taliban rule as gender apartheid and the recent legislation in Iran as well is not only critical for Afghan women and Iranian women, but it is equally critical for the credibility of the entire UN system. So if we don't stand up to defend women's rights in Afghanistan and Iran, then we have no credibility anywhere in the world. And related to that is the point that we need to foster transnational solidarity. We need to foster transnational solidarity because this is not just an Afghan problem or an Iranian problem. This is a regional problem, and this is a problem for women across the globe eventually. So I think we need to recognize that. And finally, I'm going to talk about the idea, well, Heather mentioned the feminist foreign policy. And in this morning's New York Times, there was an article written by an American who was part of the UN system and calling on the 12 countries. And Canada is one of the countries that has a declared feminist foreign policy. We do see a backlash against women's rights across the globe, not just in Iran, Afghanistan, but we can look at the United States as well. So I think that what I'd like to end with is people often ask the question, well, what can I do? And I think there's a lot that we can as ordinary citizens do in terms of mobilizing our own politicians, our MPs, our representatives, supporting Afghan and Iranian women wherever we can, including them in discussions and not speaking on their behalf. So I'd like to end there and open the floor to other panelists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Vrinda, for that very succinct call to action, but certainly the framing of, the reminder of Canada's feminist foreign policy as a declared country that's prominent in that space. Yeah, very important, and it underscores why it's crucial for us to be having conversations like this here today. Next, I would like to give the floor to Zarqa Yaftali of the Women and Children's Legal Research Foundation and Women Living Under Muslim Laws to come and discuss a little bit about what's being done activism-wise in terms of this work, both in Canada and internationally. So, Zarqa, if you would like to take the floor for about 4 or 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. First of all, I want to say thanks from Omidyar for all of her efforts regarding to create a joint situation for Afghanistan and Iran women to work together regarding their fights and against gender apartheid in both countries. Omidyar, we appreciate all of your efforts. Regarding that, what we have done during during the past 2 years and about recognition of gender apartheid as a crime in Afghanistan, and which is Taliban implementing right now. During the past 2 years, a lot of networks, coalition, and women individuals, we worked a lot. We tried a lot to bring the issue and also the term of gender apartheid and the agenda of international policymakers and the agenda of United Nations Security Council and the agenda of United States and also other world policymakers that they have direct influence in the situation of all people in Afghanistan, especially women in Afghanistan. I'm sure that all of you, maybe all of you know about what's happened and what was the efforts and the work that we have done during the past 2 years regarding that. And I am very happy that right now we are in a situation that right now there is a large number of networks, coalition that they want to work and they want to raise their voice regarding to gender apartheid in Afghanistan. So it's a good initiative, and we all the time we appreciate. And I want to say thanks from some of our international friends like Iterbar, like Karimi Binoun, and also Sanam, that they work with us in our fights regarding against gender apartheid in the past 2 decades, and they work with us tirelessly. I honestly, we should appreciate their support. We should stand with them, because as the international figures all the time they supported us. And what we have done during the past months, we are working with a network of women that are inside of Afghanistan and also outside of Afghanistan. It was about 5 months ago that we prepared a report from the gender apartheid in Afghanistan, and we pointed to all of the edicts that Taliban announced during the past 2 years. For example, during the past 2 years, Taliban announced 193 edicts, and among this 193 edicts, 93 of them is about restriction on the right of women in Afghanistan. So it shows a systematic discrimination against women in the country. And definitely, when we are talking about systematic discrimination in a country, it is some kind of gender apartheid that we are facing in Afghanistan right now. We prepare a report from the situation of women in Afghanistan, and then we share I'm going to talking very fast, and then we share this report with all members of the United Nations Security Council, with all 15 members of the United Nations Security Council. And it was good that the two temporary presidents of the United Nations Security Council, UAE and also USA, they had some meeting with us, and they told us that they are with women of Afghanistan in their fights regarding to gender apartheid in the country. And right now we are working closely with the UAE mission and the United Nations, because right now UAE is the pen holder of Afghanistan and the United Nations Security Council, and they are the one that can support us regarding our fight and recognition of gender apartheid. And it is very good that right now they have full solidarity with us, and they are working with us, and they they promise to us that they are going to provide opportunity to connect us with all of the member of United Nations Security Council to use the term of gender apartheid regarding the situation of when they are talking about Afghanistan and regarding to situation of women in Afghanistan. So we are going to continue our work, and right now we are working together with WLUML regarding gender apartheid, and I hope that right now we can have more achievement regarding our struggles and regarding to have our influence to the United Nations Security Council, to all state member of a state, and also ICC, that they should work on criminalization of gender apartheid as an international crime in the international law. So it is very important that we all should work together with different UN bodies, that they should criminalize gender apartheid as an international crime and the international crime. I think if from today's even, if we just take this point that we are going together for criminalization of gender apartheid in the criminal law, as Freshta John mentioned, I think it will be a good start, and we can have lots of achievement together in this regard. Thank you so much, Omidyar.
Thank you so much, Zarqa. Okay, I'd like to invite Ms. Nargis Nehan to come up and talk for a few minutes about Nargis is the co-founder of the Canada Feminist Forum for Afghanistan. She's going to speak a little bit about how this forum will carry forward this work in the Canadian space, and also to provide, I think, a few summarizing comments, and then we'll hand back to Homa to close, and we can have some discussion after that. So thank you, Nargis.
Thank you very much, Sarah John. First of all, I have to thank Homa John, yourself, and rest of your colleagues for taking such an important initiative and beginning the collaborative process for recognition of gender apartheid in Afghanistan, Iran, and I hope that it would not happen in another country. I would like to first of all give you brief information about CFFA, the Canada's Feminist Forum for Afghanistan, a newly established platform, and then I'm also going to share a few remarks related to the points that rest of my colleagues actually mentioned here. As you're all very aware that a good number of Afghan women activists from different sectors are now resettled in Canada. Actually, Canada has the highest number of Afghan women activists in different provinces right now. But what we also saw in the last 1 year, that there is limited number of platforms that could provide opportunities and support the Afghan women so that we can continue continue our activism while living in exile and being able to amplify the voice of the women that they're trapped inside Afghanistan and they cannot raise their voice. So as you're all very aware, with the support of many Afghan women, including Zarqa Jan, Freshta Jan, and many others, Sarah and Homa Jan herself, we actually had the Afghan Canadian Women's Symposium last year in September in Ottawa, where actually after 1 days of interaction with the policymakers within Canada, as well as with some policymakers in the international community, we actually issued a call for action on 3 thematic areas and asking for specific actions from the government of Canada and as well as the wider international community. But then after that, we had several meetings with the Global Office and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the Ministry of International Development, the Minister himself, and as well as with some senators and parliamentarians. And we continued raising the calls that we had for the action, and we continued following up on implementation of those calls for action. We were very happy, and of course, there were also other efforts that actually we supported that, but our role was also complementary in actually amendment of the criminal code, which allowed the Canadian organizations to resume back their operation in Afghanistan and be able to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghans at this very difficult time. Then after that, we actually had the sad news that Women Regional Network is sunsetting by end of this year, and they're not going to continue their operation anymore. So the question that you're having is that how do we continue our activities and activism and advocacy in a systematic manner if we lose the support that we have from Women Regional Network, because they have been providing us with the Secretariat support so far. So that's where actually the whole idea of Canada's Feminist Forum for Afghanistan came up, that we came up with the name, and we got support from a Women Regional Network and also a few individuals, including Sarah Jan and a few others, that we managed to establish that. And this forum is actually a very inclusive and diverse forum where we have managed to bring in an advocacy and coordination committee, the women's rights activists from different sectors. We had the ex-ministers, parliamentarians, some of them are here. We have Najla Jan here. We have all, I don't want to mention names because everybody's part of that, but we have all colleagues here that they are part of that committee, and we launched the CFFA on 7th September, and we are very much looking forward to having our first planning session very soon, and then after that we'll be launching and trying to make our activities very systematic so that we can engage with the government of Canada, we can amplify the voices of the women from inside Afghanistan, and we can also contribute to the global advocacy for ending the gender apartheid, criminalizing that. That is about CFFA. 2 more minutes that I have, I want to highlight 3 more points. One is about the recognition of women as the only democratic force against the gender apartheid in Iran and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, as we understand very well, that end of the day, it's the geopolitics that actually makes the priority and makes that grab the attention rather than the actual issue. I always keep on saying that if Ukrainian is also getting all these attention, it's not because of Ukraine itself, it's just because of Russia. So the day that the world will conclude once again that Taliban cannot be their partner, Taliban cannot deliver what they're expecting them on the ground, they are going to recognize us once again, and they are going to count on our support for democracy in Afghanistan. And we are waiting for that day. The second part is about gender apartheid. For that, solidarity is very, very much important. What is happening in Afghanistan today, what is happening to women in Iran today is not going to stay in these 2 countries. With the connectivity that we have today, it is going to influence the rest of the country. So we are on the ground, we are in the first line fighting for equality and universal human rights. And by standing with us, you are standing for the values, and you are standing for your future generation so that they don't face what we are facing today in Afghanistan. And the third point that I want to make is the matter of accountability. Politicians come, they make all these irresponsible decisions, and they are destroying and damaging all the achievements that we have had. Take the example of Afghanistan in the last 20 years. I keep on asking, where is the civil society in the United States? Where is the civil society in the rest of the countries? How they are holding to account their politicians for the very irresponsible decisions that they have made in Afghanistan? We have to come up with a mechanism for accountability. Politicians after this have to realize that if they are making irresponsible decisions and if they are compromising women's rights or human rights, they are going to be held into account and they are going to be responsible for that. And for that, we have to work together together, we have technology, we have connectivity, we can talk to the world. We are not dependent on anybody to provide us with the platform anymore. We have the capacity and leadership that we can create it ourselves, we can raise our voice, and we can go and chase after anyone that we want to be able to hold them to account and to make sure to get what we deserve to have naturally and legally. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nargis. I always appreciate your straight talk and the way you hold our feet over the fire. So thank you for that. I think I would like to turn now to Homa once again to close this formal portion. And then I think we have about 8 to 10 minutes for some open discussion. Is that right? We're good for about 10 minutes further. So I will hand it over to Homa to close now. Thank you so much.
Well, actually, I want to thank everyone for coming, but also I want to say, let's not, a lot of us coming together and talk then, but we don't continue our discussion as a continuation. Then we leave it for another 6 months or 4 months, and so then we come together and start all from new. Let's make this a point that we continue our conversation. Let's make it, even if it is a Zoom online, but a continuation of this. We can continue writing. And also, I want to say one more thing about what actually Dr. Shirin Ebadi said here, was that it was very important that we use the same weapon that as Taliban are using against us, we use it against them. It's not true that there are not a lot of progressive interpretation of Islam on the women's right, but they remain in the libraries. Let's make them open to the public. Let's have floors, invite the people who speak about that, and then make those Zoom available there. You can't. That's what Iranian did for like today. They never talk about this. Talk about progressive interpretation because it's happened. People have passed. They know they can. When the regime tries to use Islam against women's rights, it's the regime that loses legitimacy, not the people being pointed. But we have to do a similar process for Afghanistan, and we have to work together to do that. The work is there. It just means we have to make that a priority. One last point is that, yes, we need to work with the governments. It's important they make the rules and the laws and all that, but we also have to work on the ground. We have to work with civil society. We have to make the connection. Where is the global march of women? 2 years passed after Afghanistan. We haven't had that. It's not all women organizing. It's also a problem of us not getting to organize. So we have to work together to make that happen. And yes, we work for the government. Let's follow the rules of WLUML. The Women Living Under Muslim Law said, you have to work. You have no choice. You have to work with women on the ground, and you have to work with UN and the governments and all this at the same time. Otherwise, even if you get the laws at the UN, it's not going to make a major impact if the women on the ground don't know that they can use those rules, if they haven't fought for it to get it in the first place. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Homa. We can now open the floor if anyone has anything they would like to add or questions for any of our speakers.
Actually, this is, it's not like I'm talking about the problem, but yeah. Actually, while Omidyar was speaking, and I was thinking, like, there's a little bit of difference between the current situation in Iran and Afghanistan, because in Iran you have a recognized government, but in Afghanistan we don't have it. So who should we talk to? Even if we have all the knowledge, if we have the resources and everything, but who do we talk to? So that's why we do need these kind of platforms to work together, to find ways that how we can get there. And how we can, first we do need a recognized government, first of all there. So that's another discussion, because there are different discussions. Some people are talking about recognizing this government, some people are talking about, no, we don't want this government, we want a mixed government. Some people say, no, we want a completely new government there. So this is a very critical situation for us. That's why we are struggling so much. And the other thing is that we have to confess that we are not very much united. How Khanum Ebadi was saying that we have to be man and woman has to be united. In Iran, man and woman they fight for each other's right, but in Afghanistan that's not the case. Even between women, we don't have the trust. So this is very important for us. That yes, we do have a big group of leader women and human rights and women's rights activists around the world, especially in Canada, but we don't have the unity and the trust between each other. So this is very important that we continue these discussions with more open discussions, very open, like instead of calling each other that who is from what side, very open discussions that finally we get to the point and to the reality and facts, so we find a solution. Otherwise, if we don't put the facts and realities on the table, we will not find a solution. This is very important. So we have to put it, whether discriminating or criminalizing each other, that who is taking which part. We have to put the facts on the table. So this is also one of the issues. But in Iran, you don't have. That's what I understand. You might not have that issue as serious as we have it now.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I mean, I know that Homa wants to respond to that as well. I would just say that, I think you're right. There are parallel conversations that need to happen. But one of those, what you've just described is a conversation that's internal to Afghan voices, and that needs to happen at the same time as we have these transnational dialogues of solidarity, and both need to happen simultaneously. I mean, I don't think you will find a diverse society of millions of people anywhere on the planet where there is absolute unity and conformity of opinion, and that's a good thing. And as far as the laws go, I mean, we were actually in a discussion with Heather Barr last week in which she pointed out that an international law, once it's there for every country to use. So this is why we need to, fight for that international recognition, because it can then be used by any group or country that wishes to pursue it. I think Homa had some comments she wanted to add to that as well, and then we'll go to this question.
I just wanted to mention that I have heard this from others that because we don't have a legitimate government, it's hard who do we negotiate. Actually, in Iran, we worked hard to delegitimize the government that is there. Having a legitimized government is not the solution. We work hard by discussing Islam, by working within the country. So in fact, you have one step ahead of us when we started this debate, because at least you don't have to delegitimize the government, it's already delegitimized. So it's a very important, I think we have to look at it as Shirin Ebadi said, look at not see things only as problem, in fact, that's a solution. If the public knows, if the women in the country know that in fact it's not Islam that has said that, if they can fight it back with their brothers, fathers, neighbors, then they can do this. So I think we have to start from there when we talk about the public. So I think that's, let's not just look at Iran today. Today in Iran, you don't need to discuss it, but because 40 years we did this, we have done that, we have we try to delegitimize. No one, even when the regime is using like this ifaf and hijab and all these things, everybody laughs, including the government itself. They don't actually know that they don't. This is nothing to do with Islam.
Okay, yeah, I think we have here this gentleman at the head of the table, and then yes.
In Afghanistan, we say بنویس تا شب خوش نویس. I really focus on that. I focus on perseverance because to me, perseverance and staying determined is very, very important in the situation, because it is not a problem. It is not an issue that needs to be resolved just by one particular category of the society. It requires the unity and it requires the inclusivity. So because of the lack of the time, I focus on two main words and concepts. Inclusivity and unity are these two words, a key word or keywords that could play a crucial role in combating what we are facing in Afghanistan.
Nargis?
Yeah, just to add upon what Shirin was saying and also Omidyar was saying, I think for us the challenge is that we have to work very hard to stop the work, prevent the work from the recognition of that average. Because as we know, while we deserve to work on the recognition of gender apartheid, but we see the world is trying to find ways so that they can recognize the issue. So that is a big struggle for us on our table. The other point, last point I want to make is the comparison of the first time that Taliban came into power, the second. I think that is where we see the value of education and aware society. And also the power of internet and connectivity. First time when they came into power, very few around the world knew what's happening to Afghan women. It was really those that they were educated and they were engaged somehow in Afghanistan, so they had information and they were getting some reports to know what is happening. But this time, whatever is happening in any part of Afghanistan today, even if the mainstream media does not want to cover that, still we use social media and we make sure that we get that throughout the world. So I think that is a powerful platform for us to use. And then also the investment that we have had on awareness raising of the youth, girls and others have really paid off in Afghanistan. That today we see very young girls, that we have one of them as example here, Homa and here, here, that while knowing very well that they're facing a very brutal group that at any point they can just turn their gun and kill her, but still she went on the street and she stood for their right. Why? Because she now understands the value of the education and as well as being an independent. So I think the more we focus on not only education, but also raising awareness of every part of the society about their rights, about their citizen responsibility, about their citizen role, and then providing them with a platform to be able to engage with us and raise their voice will enable us and will strengthen our overall movement.
Thank you, Nargis. I will give the final word to
یک کمی بلندتر. A little bit louder if you can. Just louder.
فرقش داری باشه که حداقل بگیم که ما شما اگر میخوایم از مشترکات صحبت بکنیم، اگر میخوایم واقعا از همکاری بین زنان افغانستان و ایران صحبت بکنیم، چند موضوع در نظر داشته باشیم که حداقل باید در آینده سرش رفع شود و این چالش‌ها و مشکلات‌ها برطرف شود. این است که شما شاهد هستین از مشکلات نمیگیم، ما کسی ما از مشکلات نمیگیم، مشکلات افغانستان همه میگیم، ولی میخوایم این صحبت بکنیم که تمام کسایی که شما اینجا میبینین، زنایی که اینجا میبینین، همه ایشان در افغانستان بالاخره کسب میدن و فعالیت‌های داشته. به اینجا آمدن بیکار ننشسته، هر کس به اینجا آمدن تلاش میکنه صدای زن افغان رو کردن و کسی رو اینجا داریم که برنامه مرسل به اینجا است، حتی به خاطر دفاع حقوق زنان زندگی شده شکنجه‌اش اما درد زن افغان این است امروز که چرا صدایشان شنیده نمیشه. در ایران مکسامین کشته میشه، تمام دنیا ایران تحریم میکنه، مثلا صدای زنان ایران رو میشنویم، اما ما به وقتی که نسبت به زنان افغان میبینیم تبعیض میبینیم. من خودم شخصا تبعیض میبینم، همیشه در هر جا صحبت میکنیم چرا بین زن ایران و زن افغانستان فرق کنیم، دنیا فرق کنیم. حتی شما در نشست سازمان ملل از جو بایدن سوال میشه که از وضعیت زنان افغانستان صحبت کنیم، حاضر نیست که کشور بزنیم. میخواستیم زن ایران مثلا چندین رسانه در صدایش بلند میکنیم، شب روز صحبت میکنیم، اما از افغانستان چرا حداقل در اون برنامه‌هایشان یک روز برای اختصاص نمیده که درباره زن افغانستان هم صحبت کنیم. ما نمیگیم که زن ایران مشکل نداره، درست مشکل، اما میگیم فرق در این است که صدای اونها شنیده میشه، صدای ما شنیده نمیشه. ایران از چندین رسانه که اختیارشان هست هر روز بلندگویشان صدایش بلند میکنن، هر قدر زنان افغانستان از داخل افغانستان از خارج صدا بلند میکنه، هیچ کس صداش نمیشه. ما بیاییم کار مشترک بکنیم که اگر شما قوی هستین ما زنان افغان ضعیف هستیم، بیاییم این مشکل برطرف کنیم. یک مکانیزم سنجیده شود ساخته شود که حداقل اگر قرار است گپ از کمبود مشترک هستم کاری بکنیم که حداقل صدای زنان خانم شنیده شد. مشکلات افغانستان هم در سطح بین‌الملل انشاء الله بحث سازمان ملل سر مشکلات افغانستان صحبت شد. بسیار تشکر. من واقعا درد دل خود دل خواستم. خاطر از اینکه ما فرق می‌بینیم. چرا فرق می‌بینیم؟ چرا تبعیض می‌بینیم؟ چرا تبعیض هست؟ بیایید ما شما صدا باشیم که چرا تبعیض وجود داره؟
Do you want me to respond? Can I respond in English?
Yeah, I think we might still have some guests online.
Okay.
Who are, yeah.
The question, the issue was that there's a difference between when something happens in Iran, international media and international community is reacting, but when women in Afghanistan are doing this thing, then they don't get the same reaction. And so the point is, there wasn't always this situation. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was not the situation. So women actually organized internationally. All the women leaders who were outside organized. It's also the question of geopolitics. Some of it is nothing to do with all these things. It's the interest of the West. Because they want to delegitimize the regime of Iran, so that's there. So that's part of it. But another part is that we actually worked together and did that. One of the issues also, like, and just as an example, why don't you all write to say BBC Farsi? They should have, in BBC Farsi, they should have equal time for issues of women in Afghanistan and Iran. Why don't they have? They're not going to change if you don't write to them. We have to write collectively. Write a petition, do it, send it, and then you see the change is going to be there.
Okay, and on that note, thank you, Homa. I'm sorry to interrupt that. I think we have to return the room to the university. But on that note, that's a very beautiful way to close, because I will just echo what Homa has already said. Let's allow this to be the start of a dialogue. We want to continue having this conversation, building this solidarity. A good place to start is to visit the Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan website, the Women Living Under Muslim Laws website. Our open letter is there. Sign it, have your organization sign it. Please circulate it widely. This is going to take patience and perseverance, which I know Afghan and Iranian women have in riches. So we're going to keep going.
I want to just ask if you take some moment for herself, because she's one of the women protesters and she was in the jail. Taliban detained her, so she want to share some word with us.
تجربه زندان بگم؟ تجربه زندان کلاش زودتر بگم. یعنی تجربه زندان
Because she has lots of pain than us. تلخترینش بود و چیزی که برای زیاد سخته بود. تلخترینشی بود زمانی که مرا طالب به زندان برد. شب اولش که تا صبح 6 روز وقتی که برد به تحقیق، وقتی که من داخل اتاق می برد، نه فارسی میفهمید نه پشتو میفهمید. دروازه رو باز کرد، 8 نفر بودن، یکی با بود عسکری از عقب زد، رفتیم پیش رو خوردم. وقتی که اتفاقا استاد شده نمیتونستم. اتفاقا که افتیده بود، او را غیر یک خانم میفهمه که داخل زندان چی اتفاقی به من افتاد. او را خودم میفهمم و کسایی که همون مردای که اونجا بود. تقریبا 2 ساعت اینا میتون روی اتاق افتیده بودم. وقتی که خیستم عادتی که به من پیش آمده بود، یعنی یک دختر خانم از اتاق لیلا آمد، همگی ماشته بودیم با اون وضعیتی که به من پیش آمده بود گریه میکردیم. من تا حال از ناحیه کمر از طالب آسیب پذیر هستم. این تنها من نبودم، این اتفاقات به من پیش بوده. اونجا ما بچه‌های زیاد داریم، دخترای زیاد داریم، نظامی پیشتر بود، کارمندای سابق دولت بود، همگی در اون زندان‌ها. اگر من یک لگت طالب خوردم، اونا تمام شب شکنجه می‌شدن. من صدای بچه 16 ساله‌ای را می‌شنیدم که طالب شکنجهش می‌کرد، شک چیغ می‌زد در پشت جالی است و بچه یک چیغ میزد که مرا ایلا کو. من بچه ای را دیدم به چشمای خودم که رقمی که لطش کرده بودن که یک نفر با شما قاشق پنجه را بگیرین تربوز را تو سرش فراشیده کنین. او بچه را به اون شکل لط کرده بودن که از تمام بدن از او خون بیرد.
حتی گردن خشور داده نمیتونست. فقط اینم که در روی زمین انداخته بودنش با وجود با اونم قدر حالت و بعدش لگد میخورد.
متاسفانه که من اینو فارسی میگم تازانه there are very many sad stories, not just in Afghanistan, even in Iran today, despite all the media attention, these things happens. I mean, many of you know I myself suffered similar things. I wasn't physically tortured so much because I'm older, but anyway, so those are the, let's make this end of our sessions, but let's get together, let's decide, we are going to work together, choose, and I especially will ask you to start a petition for BBC Farsi. If you don't just feel your discriminated against, take action. From a small thing. Start from BBC Farsi because it's influential. Start from international. Write to different stations. But start from something. It's not enough to put up with, to be conscious of discrimination, but you have to take action, even if it is just a small one. Okay. Thank you very much to all of you for sitting here. Unfortunately, we have to give the room back. They're waiting to throw us out.
Okay.
So I thank you very much for all of you online. And we will organize more of these sessions where we can talk all day. Thank you.